Hey everybody, Aaron here for Movie Battleground. I just wanted to record a special little intro video to stick at the start of this match. So this matchup is the number one contenders match between Chadwick Webb and Shaun Hunter. And as you guys can see, I am not at my house. In the week leading up to the recording of this match, I was about a week away from going on a vacation, partially because one of my best friends was getting married. In fact, I actually recorded 2 matches while I was away on that vacation, so you will see this hotel room 2 more times following this. However, in the week prior to my going away, because I was going to be gone for a week, my job that I have for the summer, separate, the thing that pays me, needed me to be less adjusting with my hours so that I could cover for other people who would have to not have days off while I was gone, because we're a little understaffed at that job. So it meant that in order to get this match recorded, I was not available to be there for it. And so Henry Sanchez actually took over the hosting job for me, because we thought it would be cool to have the champion host the number one contenders match. However, in a mistake that I did not realize until after the match had been recorded, Henry had never actually produced a match by himself. He has hosted matches before, but just through pure coincidence, every match that he has hosted, I've actually been there for, whereas a number of our other hosts have hosted matches and produced them at the same time, or I've given them a training on producing them. I had just incorrectly assumed that Henry already had. That's completely on me for not double checking with him, and so I kind of threw him in the deep end, and I threw him in bad. I didn't show him where anything on our StreamYard was. I didn't give him the timer that we use for Battleground, everything. So production-wise, this match is going to look a little off. The other thing is, because I wasn't there, he was using, for those of you who don't know, when other people host, I give them basically a match write-up. Sometimes it's obvious. Some people prefer to read from it. Some people kind of just go off the cuff. But every person who hosts gets a match write-up with talking points and the questions and all that stuff. Because Henry didn't have me to bounce off of, Henry and the competitors were kind of all bouncing off each other, making sure they were getting the rules right as they went along. Now, in the end, they did get the rules 100% correct. There's no actual error with the match. But there's a handful of moments throughout the match where they kind of had to stop at the end of each round just to be sure that they are on the right track and the right thing is happening. I have made a decision to leave those moments in because the banter between the three of them I found quite entertaining, and I think it's an interesting insight for those of you who have never been a part of a match or never been a part of a match on this scale to kind of see what can go on behind the scenes. And if you watch a match and you see the odd jump cut or edit here or there that's not as 100% clean and you wonder what may have been cut, this is the type of stuff that would get cut. And Henry's a good sport, and he was cool with me leaving this in. So this match is technically unedited. The graphics are not going to be up to their usual. He didn't know where any of the rule cards were. The timer that he's using is actually an old demo timer that was developed before we got the proper one that we've been using for months now. It was a demo one that he made that he happened to still have the file for. So, because I forgot to send him the proper one. So yeah, I just want to take full credit for it. Just mistakenly on my part, I assumed that he knew what he was doing, and God bless him, he faked it till he maked it. But that means it's a little rougher in terms of those areas, the stuff that I like to try and clean up. But I've left all of that in for what I hope is your entertainment value. With that said, this match is an excellent match between 2 people, and obviously the winner will take Henry on in our next title match, which will air the first week of September. So all that said, I hope you guys enjoy the match and the little bit of fun behind the scenes stuff that was left in that's usually taken out. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the movie Battleground. This is an interesting match because it is a number one contenders match. But the interesting fact about it is the winner will be playing myself. Somehow I am the champion here in this league. I don't want to say somehow because I'm awesome, but somehow I got lucky enough for everyone else to agree on that and, award me a championship. And so the winner of this match is going to be playing me in the finals. It's unprecedented waters because I am just hosting. Don't worry. No bias here. I'm not judging or nothing. But we have two competitors that I know well in the Battleground field. We have Chad Webb and Shaun Hunter. Shaun Hunter is a player that I've already played and, luckily for me, beaten. So I know that he's got revenge on his mind. And Chad is a player that I know who just loves this game and is looking for that title. So I'm definitely curious to see if they brought it. But we're going to come in one at a time, and we are going to introduce our first competitor in the Battleground. First up, with a record of 4 wins, 2 losses, 2 KOs. The aforementioned player that has lost to me, but he's got a great record nonetheless, Shaun Hunter.
Hello, everybody. It was a pleasure losing to you. That was such a fun match.
So aside from that match, because that's just is what it is. But on your winning tour and all the games that you have won, what is something that you felt that you've learned throughout your journey, grown, and what you've brought to the table coming into this match?
I think whatever choice I've made, if I agree with it or don't agree with it, just be as passionate as possible about it. Trying to find something, little thing about my choice that I do agree with, and then also bring into this match. Just have fun,
I like that.
yeah, just having fun.
There you go. So,
Yeah.
without getting into specifics with the questions or anything, is this a match that feels tailored to you, or is it something you kind of had to step out of your comfort zone and see what happens?
I think it's a well balanced match in terms of what I got for my answers and what Chad got. There was one match a while ago. I think we're both, me and my competitor, both hated most of the questions we got. So this is a fun match. I'm actually really psyched to answer these questions and debate.
Well, there you go. Well, the best of luck to you. Obviously, I'm just the host, not the judge, but I would love to play you again, but I would also love to play Chad. So either way, I'm happy with this. I just want to see a great match, and I know you're going to bring it, like you said, with that passion. So good luck.
Cool.
Introducing seconds with a record of 4 wins, 1 loss. A player that I know wants to play me so badly. I'm just kidding. That's my ego. A player that I know who has had a fantastic journey and is ready for this one, Chad Webb.
Hi.
Chad. So I guess that you guys have similar records. The only difference is that he has a couple KOs on his record and you don't.
Mhm.
Is that something that is intimidating to see on the stat sheet, or is that something that at the end of the day, debate is debate, and you can't really change how you're going to make your approach? It just whatever happens with your opponent, and you're either going to win or lose, but you're going to be the same regardless.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think what it comes down to is exactly what Shaun said. I think like our choices and everything kind of match up, but I think he and I just match up like really well. As far as like he said, bringing the passion. That's exactly what I do. I think that's what Shaun and I both excel at, is bringing our own passion. Hopefully, like it doesn't, because I know it's supposed to be like number one contenders. We're gonna butt heads. We're gonna go at it like really hard. Maybe, but like also, I've seen Shaun be in a friendly match when he played Medee. It was very kind of sweet in ways, and I was like, I really enjoyed watching that. I kind of hope that some of it is a little bit like that as well, but I know that I have what I have to say. I'm gonna say it, and he may not like it. I may not like what he has to say. It comes, and it may get heated. I don't know. I can't control that, but all I can do is just say what I got to say. Hope the judges, hear what I have to say and like what I have to say. That's really all I can do. As far as like the KOs, yeah, it's just a matter of like the game, the questions you're given, the judges you have, and the opponent that you face. I know Shaun's faced some really good people, but also maybe had like some weaker people too, just like I have. As we were coming up. So, and I think there was my very first match, I believe I've heard people say that could have been a KO if it was like difference in judging and stuff like that. I know you've had qualms with judging before a little bit, but as far as that, and yeah, he has one more loss than I do, but that just means he's played more. He has more experience. So, we'll just have to see how it plays out.
There you go. Well, I'm excited to see what happens there. I know you're going to bring it. I know he's going to bring it. And as, a player who's playing the winner of this, but also as a fan of this league, I'm excited for what's going to come. So with that said, let's go ahead and explain the rules, and let's get started. I don't know if I downloaded the rules. Yeah, I don't have those. That's fine. All right. All right. So in the movie Battleground, this is a number 1 contenders match. So it is going to be best of 5. Yeah, best of 5. I'll start that over. Oh, it's private chat. Is that important? Nope, not important. Just McLovin. All right, so in the movie Battleground, this is going to be a best of 5 match in the number 1 contenders. We have 4 main round questions, and then we have a blind round if it gets to that. And then we also have a speed round if it gets to that. The blind round obviously is going to be blind. The speed round is going to be 2 questions that were prepared ahead of time that, are going to be different paced. And then if it goes to a final one, then it'll be a blind speed round. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys know all the times. If this is the number 1 contenders match, we're just going to get started because this match has been delayed and we're ready to fight. I don't like it. You guys are messing with me. Don't put numbers in there. I think it's important because Aaron's technically back there. I'm like, maybe he's got some important constructive criticism. Nope. All right. Let's bring our competitors in. Chad, Shaun, don't kill each other. And I just want to shout out our judges in the background. We have Jake Tato, Alejandro Hernandez. I'm blanking right now. I think that's what it is. Oh my God. And McLovin, Noah McCausland.
That's it.
Yeah, I know everybody, but sometimes, when you're put on the spot, it's like trivia. If you play trivia, you're like, oh, hey, what's the director of my favorite movie? Shit, I forgot. All right, so with that said, Shaun, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Chad, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and get this started. Your first question was... I don't know whose strength it is, so you'll just have to let me know. Your first question is in the category of franchises. So it's just franchises?
I guess. It's not a strength, I don't think.
Okay.
So.
Then never mind. Maybe. We'll see. All right. Aaron, you're going to do some editing on this one. You're going to get on my level finally. All right, your first question. I don't know if it's a strength. I don't know what it is. But your first question is, what is the best franchise/series released by Dreamworks Animation? So we are going to be starting with Shaun, I assume. Then going over to Chad in that order. Does that sound right?
I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Oh, my God.
If your name's on top, in the doc,
I'll look it up.
In the doc, it rotates, so we will just use the benefit of the doubt that's...
I think Chad picked which questions he wanted to go first on.
I did. It's on
Aaron, thanks for editing this, Aaron. We appreciate you.
Fine. Let me look this up real quick.
And, fun fact, viewers, if it did not get edited, enjoy.
Extra show for the viewers.
Maybe I'll be a...
I said I'll go first on even, so Shaun does go first on question 1.
All right, so we got the names right. So sometimes you deduce logic and it works. All right, so with that said, Shaun has elected to go first on questions 1 and 3, and Chad has elected to go first on questions 2 and 4. Some might call those odds, some might call those evens. Some people don't know, so I spelled it out. So with that said, I'm going to put myself out of there, and then you're going to get 1 minute to open, 2 minutes to rebut, 4 minutes for a open battle, and then a 1 minute closing. So with that said, I'm going to start off with Shaun, and then we'll go from there. So you'll start when the timer will start when you begin speaking.
Will the timer be on screen? Okay, cool. Best franchise produced and made by DreamWorks. It has to be Shrek. There are 4 films in the Shrek franchise. When the first Shrek film came out, I dare say it was groundbreaking. It was just a breath of fresh air in the animated space. It continued throughout the sequels. It is one of Mike Myers' best performances, most recognizable performances, and the fact that the film franchise still holds up to this day, the fact that it still has so many adults that love the franchise and kids who are getting into it just makes it one of the best. Especially when you're talking about franchises, if you look at the quality of the films, the animation at that time and throughout the sequels, the box office performance, the all-star cast, the popularity in pop culture, it's still thriving today. It is by far the best franchise produced by DreamWorks.
All right, that is that time for 1 minute. So same thing for Shaun. Clock will start. For Chad, clock will start when you begin speaking.
The best franchise given to us by DreamWorks Animation is a no-brainer. It's the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. This trilogy rivals some of the best trilogies of all time. Why? Each film stands on its own and fits perfectly in the franchise to give us great character development and world building that make you fall in love with this franchise. They even expand on the lore with a long-running television show. People love it. The visuals in this thing are the best in all of DreamWorks, thanks to Roger Deakins. Got his first a win for that in Academy Awards. The score and Deakins were both nominated. The movies are fun, funny, but also deep and heartfelt. They are great for kids and adults alike. Both can actually learn something from this franchise about things like ignorance, prejudice, leadership, friendship, love, and respect. You get some of the most emotional moments that rival those of Pixar. The hiccup, toothless friendship is one of the best in film. It's really something special. It's a franchise for the ages and the best DreamWorks ever gave us.
That is time. All right. So now we have both competitors with their answers in the openings. Now we're going to have a 2-minute rebuttal starting with Shaun. Go ahead.
Going back. Good?
Yep.
Going back to How to Train Your Dragon, just because it has filled out its lore a little bit with a long-running show, doesn't really add to the movie franchise of it. We're specifically talking about movies. It's movie debate, so it having a show that filled in some of the gaps doesn't really do anything. Obviously, Shrek has had a couple sequels with, or especially with Puss in Boots, that have filled out some of the gaps, that has followed a really interesting character in Puss in Boots that was introduced in the later films of Shrek. Going back to the visuals of Shrek, it's a beautiful film. If you look at some of the elements, especially in the first film, with the dragon, some of the fire elements, for its time, and even its later sequels, the animation really, really holds up, especially when you get into the fourth film. Talking about learning about, rights, wrongs, looking at, trying to become just okay with yourself, okay with who you are in your body. Shrek helped, that franchise, especially the first 2 films, helped a lot of kids growing up just who had issues. Like, we all went through puberty in school, but watching Shrek, seeing that he was okay with himself, watching him and Donkey and Fiona kind of get over all those tropes of being the ogre, being ugly, and then in the sequel, when that kind of flips with Fiona, when we see Donkey being with a dragon, Shrek really showed us, it really showed kids that we could get along with each other, even though we have differences. It doesn't matter, because there's something deeper inside. That's what Shrek shows. And with How to Train Your Dragon, I personally felt like it was just kind of a kid and his dog. Whereas with Shrek, I felt like it was fleshed out characters with all of them. And Shrek, for me personally, the franchise is just way funnier than How to Train Your Dragon. Things just, comedy-wise, added up. And especially when you look at the music, that the music, everything that's sung in the Shrek films is so hilarious.
All right, now we're going to jump over to Chad. 2 minutes when you begin speaking. You're muted, so 2 minutes when you begin being heard.
Thank you. The first How to Train Your Dragon has themes that seem to be timeless, like ignorance and prejudice. We're constantly dealing with people who will never change their mindset. The city of Berk is like this. To them, killing dragons was a tradition, but it was also harmful to both Vikings and dragons alike. Hiccup, an unlikely hero, uses his differences to change the city of Berk by challenging their beliefs and showing them how to become a more peaceful utopia. It sets a standard for kids and adults to learn how to treat others. It's okay to be different, and it's okay to have an open mind. The second and third films offer additional themes of not knowing where you fit in, being forced to take on leadership, making hard decisions to help those you love be safe, and letting go of the things you love most in order to protect them and help them grow on their own. Hiccup has so much growth as a character throughout this franchise that he is completely different from where he started in the first film. Same with Toothless, actually, and other characters as well. It's a perfect trilogy because the final film sticks the landing and will make you feel all of the feelings. In contrast, Shrek has little growth. In fact, the themes of the first film seem to be repeated throughout the next few films without characters really learning from the past at all. Fiona's dad, who does experience some growth in Shrek 2, ends up becoming a comic relief in the third film where they make his death into a joke. Compare this to that of Stoic in How to Train Your Dragon 2. His death is tragic, but it also fuels Hiccup to become a stronger leader and rallies Toothless and Berk to triumph over the villain and become a strong society. The original Shrek was a classic and very sweet. Lots of nostalgia with that, but the animation I don't actually think holds up, to be honest. It feels very blocky. Shrek 2 was fun, but didn't offer much more growth or nuance. After that, the returns started to diminish very quickly with the third and fourth installments, basically trying to hammer home the fact that Shrek just does not want responsibility and can't handle it. They make him a worse character. Instead of crafting new, interesting stories that are engaging and fun to watch over and over again, it just relies on the same fart humor, cliches, and tired references that date the movies and make them unrelatable to future generations.
All right. So with that said, we are going to be jumping into the 4-minute opening. This is a round that could get heated. So get your popcorn. So with that said, we will start when the first person begins speaking.
I'm not reading off a script. I'm just speaking out of the passion, out of my heart, especially when it comes with the Shrek franchise. Talking about graphics, the graphics certainly improved throughout the Shrek franchise, especially looking at when the first Shrek came out. Obviously, there was a huge gap between the first Shrek and How to Train Your Dragon. The graphics are going to be different. Looking at the characters are just so much more memorable in Shrek. Donkey, Fiona, especially in the first one, Lord Farquaad. And then when you have Justin Timberlake coming in as a character in the second film, it just brings a breath of fresh air. And we're talking about the franchise. We're not talking about what is the best film. We're not talking about which film is the Citizen Kane of the DreamWorks franchises. We're talking about the franchise as a whole. What kids relate to more. It's the fun, the comedy in the Shrek franchise, and especially when you look at the box office compared to How to Train Your Dragon, from Shrek to How to Train Your Dragon, especially with How to Train Your Dragon 3, people didn't really care about it. People kind of didn't fall out of love with the franchise. And you talked about in the later films, Shrek not really changing as a character. Shrek totally had a progression through those films, especially when he didn't want to deal with his responsibilities. Like, that's what happens to adults. We grow up and then we're just slammed with responsibilities and we don't want them. I related so much to the journey of Shrek.
Buddy, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but he just, in the third and fourth movies, he just kept like wanting to just throw away his responsibility and didn't ever want to deal with it. We don't actually get to see him dealing with his responsibilities that much. Like, he kills someone in the third movie and there's no repercussions for that. Like I said, like with how they handle certain characters, like the death of Fiona's father, they just turn it into a silly joke that just kind of ruins that character a little bit. And then also they sideline a lot of the characters. Like, if Donkey's one of your big characters, respect him. Don't just like throw him in the movie because like, well, we have to have Donkey, so let's have him swap bodies with Puss in Boots. This will be a really funny thing. We have to have something for them to actually do. I think that How to Train Your Dragon is incredibly fun for both kids and adults. And I'm sorry that I picked a franchise that is elevated to that of something like Lord of the Rings, something that you can actually watch and say, no, these are fucking films. This is a franchise. This is a trilogy that you can put up in the annals of all trilogies. Shrek just, is not very consistent at all through its own thing. They're like, it's almost like they made a really solid film with Shrek, and then they're like, all right, what else can we do? Let's repeat the same stuff from Shrek 1, but let's also just kind of throw in a bunch of jokes like this cops humor and stuff like that people would really
a comedy.
love. I understand it's a comedy, and it works well as a comedy, but I just don't think that it's not planned. It's not something that
we're talking about best franchise, right? You can't knock the franchise because it's comedies, right? And especially you brought up Donkey and how he switched bodies with Puss in Boots. Like, I think that's what you got to do with these characters. You got to put them in new situations. And we're talking about Hiccup and Toothless. I don't see the chemistry between those two characters. Sorry. When I look at the chemistry between Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey, it's hilarious. And the Shrek franchise as a franchise in pop culture is so much more quotable, especially in the first film with the Muffin Man. What a classic joke that's just perfect. Like, there's nothing for me personally that memorable about the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, and I do feel the films are all kind of similar. And the third one, I don't think it's as good as the first two. So for me, it does drop down in quality, storytelling.
No, actually, the third, if I have to do a defense of the third one is actually phenomenal. The third one actually sticks the landing. What it does is it is the culmination of Hiccup's arc. So basically, Hiccup's trying to become a leader, and like in this one, he's almost a leader, but he realizes that the dragons will never be. Is the time up?
Yeah.
You realize that the time is up. Okay.
I'll give you guys 30 seconds because that's on me.
The dragons will never be safe, so he has to separate from Toothless, and when he's going to separate from Toothless, the groundwork that they laid between the relationship between these two characters throughout the films. It's heartbreaking that he has to let go of Toothless, but he has to do it for both of their growth. And
some of the scenes in the Shrek films are also just heartbreaking, especially when Shrek has to deal with his body dysmorphia.
But also when they treat
that's a real thing.
Like they blow up animals like balloons and kill them. They
and
just animals in that movie.
All right. For the record, judges, that timing thing was on me. So if there's any awkward points, don't knock anyone for that. I was doing some producing stuff behind the scenes. We're all caught up. So with that said, 1 minute for your closing.
When we do the 4-minute open round, will the timer be on screen for the next? Like, is that possible?
If you guys want it on the entire time, if not, I'll pop it up every minute or so. But I'll let you guys pick. It's Contenders. So
we'll do a Brady Bunch thing where we,
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pop in and out every minute. And then 30 seconds for that last one. All right. So with that said, 1 minute remaining. We're starting with Shaun. So Shaun, for your final closing, 1 minute when you begin speaking.
For me, Shrek is the best DreamWorks franchise. It encompasses so many things that a summer kids film should be. It is a true blockbuster. It has superb action. It has characters with really good chemistry. It holds up as a comedy, and I really mean it. It does hold up as a comedy. There's dramatic parts to it. There's love story. I do feel like Shrek and Donkey and Fiona progress throughout the films. You see them live their lives. And I don't think the story's over yet. That's why the third and fourth film, the Shrek franchise, didn't conclude everything. Because Mike Myers is always planning to come back and make another Shrek film. So right now, it's an open-ended franchise. It is not finished yet. We don't know what's going to happen. And for me, as a kid, like so many other kids, I related to this franchise so much more than How to Train Your Dragon. The characters who I didn't see have a lot of chemistry. It was kind of just a boy and his pet dog. And it wasn't that much fun. Shrek is fun. That's why there's so many memes about it.
All right. So, final minute in this debate. 1 minute, Chad, when you begin speaking.
God, I hope Shrek does not come back because it ended terribly. I don't want to see that continue. That's why they're doing Puss in Boots now, because Shrek's not a viable commodity anymore. No one wants to see Shrek. Zoomers don't like Shrek. Kids don't like Shrek. Hiccup and Toothless are the perfect faces for DreamWorks now. I love the cast: Jay Baruchel, Kristen Wiig. Oh man, I'm forgetting. Gerard Butler. Fantastic. I've never liked Gerard Butler before this. The animation in this is just, astounding. Like, the way, the flying sequences with all the clothes moving, the hair moving, it's just breathtaking. With the score, the Viking lore, Jonesy singing his heart out in these and crafting original songs and scores for this with, Roger Deakins cinematography. You can't get much better than this planned trilogy of films that are just fantastic. And Toothless is the new face of DreamWorks.
All right. So with that said, we are going to go to our judges, and we will see who wins question 1. All right. So as I mentioned before, our judges today are Jake Tato, Alejandro Hernandez, Noah McCausland. So we're going to start. We're going to go Tato, Alejandro, Noah. 30 seconds or less. Give us your primary reason why you're picking who you're picking, and reveal who wins this question for you. Tato.
Ultimately, Chad won it for me. His argument was just it's a great fight, but Chad's argument was just a bit more balanced for me.
All right, we have 1 vote for Chad, and then we're going to go over to Alejandro.
Yeah, it was a very strong round for both competitors, man. Shaun came in hot with building up Shrek super hard with the nostalgia factor with the cast and the soundtrack and all that stuff. But, man, I think Chad pulled it out in the end, so I'm going with Chad for that one. Building up How to Train Your Dragon is a great film. I think it's timeless, too.
All right, so with that said, Chad is going to get the first point, but as we know that this is a number 1 contenders match for a reason, so we'll see what happens moving forward. Thank you, gentlemen. And now we're going to go over to our second question. Muted. You're muted.
Great round. Good job.
Oh, yeah.
Having fun.
There you go. All right. All right, gentlemen. So your second question now is going to be, sounds like a strength question, probably because someone's wearing a shirt related to this. Question number 2. What is Edgar Wright's most underrated film? So everyone's favorite underrated, because now you get to hype up ones that you know. But do you love? Do they love? Let's find out right now. So first question is going to be the most underrated. We're going to start off with Chad, and we will get going.
In 2004, Edgar Wright began what is now known as the Cornetto trilogy with the release of Shaun of the Dead. He single-handedly showed us that a horror parody, or homage rather, can be a great film on its own. Then he doubled down with the same creative team and gave us one of the best buddy cop action film homages ever with Hot Fuzz. But in 2013, Edgar released the third and final film in the trilogy called The World's End. This is my pick for this question. Although it's just as phenomenal as the other 2 films, making the trilogy perfect, it does not get the same amount of praise as the other 2 films, making it underrated. People act like this is the Godfather 3 of the franchise, but in fact, it's the Toy Story 3, The Return of the King. It's the epic conclusion we were all waiting for. The World's End has some of the deepest emotion and some of the most fun you can have with an Edgar Wright film. People should show this film more respect because it definitely deserves it. Cede the time.
All righty, so first one is going to go to The World's End. Now we're going to bounce over to Shaun and see what he has to say.
Most underrated Edgar Wright film, without a doubt, goes to Last Night in Soho. This film was so hyped when it came out, and a lot of people didn't like it, but it is underappreciated. They didn't understand it. Look at the chances that Edgar Wright took. He totally switched genres. Just the filming techniques used, the score, the cinematography, the acting. It's just a beautiful film, and it's so different than anything else he's ever done. It was a breath of fresh air in his film catalog, whereas I feel like The World's End, my opponent said people think it's like The Godfather 3. No, I think it's like the Dark of the Moon Transformers of the franchise. I think The World's End is properly rated. It is not underrated. I think Last Night in Soho, in the next couple years, a lot of people will appreciate it more and more, because I truly believe it's underrated. More people need to see it. It kind of came out during COVID, and people just didn't want to go out.
And time. All right, so we have The World's End versus Last Night in Soho. 2-minute rebuttals when you guys begin, starting with Chad.
To many, the Cornetto trilogy fizzles out with The World's End, but in fact, it's the culmination of the 9 years of the making of the trilogy. It is the peak, the cumulative effect. Shaun of the Dead was the beginning that got people's heads to turn. Hot Fuzz got people hooked, and The World's End stuck the landing, and people act like it's nothing. The film has themes such as overcoming addiction, trying to hold on to a time when you were happy after life goes downhill, learning to forgive yourself, learning to let go of the past and embrace the future no matter what comes. The World's End has the best acting I've ever seen from Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. We get reverse roles from them, with Simon playing the fuck up and Nick playing the straight man. You think the movie is going to be a fun pub crawl movie, and it turns out it's also an apocalyptic alien movie, which is pretty awesome. It has the best action and some really deep emotion. The bathroom fight sequence alone is better than any action in the first two movies, and that's saying something. There's great character development too. Gary King, the fuck up, lies to his friends and strings them along as a cry for help. When the aliens offer him to become a blank, to be eternally young like he always wanted, he gets a chance to literally and figuratively grow up, be a better person, and move on to life's next exciting adventure. Last Night in Soho is a niche film and not everyone's cup of tea. Edgar didn't make this film to please everyone. He wanted to make a niche giallo-style horror film about sexual abuse in the 1960s, and that's what he did for himself. Just like James Wan's Malignant, though, it's going to lose some people. Soho seems to meander in places and repeat the beats with the ghosts over and over. Edgar could have used some quick editing with those parts. The great pacing we get in other Wright films is missing here. It's also missing the classic Edgar Wright comedy. Soho just gets so serious, and that's not what people want from Edgar Wright. Despite that, it still has good reviews and time to develop more of a following since it is so new. The World's End has had 9 years for people to see its brilliance, and people say it's not as good as Shaun or Hot Fuzz, and that's just bullshit. People need to watch this movie again.
All right, and time, and we're going to jump over to Shaun for his 2 minutes when he begins.
I think Last Night in Soho was pretty universally shit on when it came out. A lot of people, most people, did not like that film or give it the time of day. The World's End, honestly, it's Edgar Wright doing his same old tricks from the first two films of his Cornetto trilogy. It's nothing new, whereas Last Night with Soho, it's him venturing into something new. You said he just made the film for himself. Every film he made is clearly for himself, from his own experiences, the things that interest him the most. I don't think that's a knock on Last Night in Soho, because you said he made it for himself. I think Last Night in Soho does have great pacing, and I think it also has great performances, better performances than at World's End. I think Nick Frost and Simon Pegg swapping the roles that they normally play, I don't think that's a good fit for World's End, and I don't think they play it better than the other one. I think they play the roles they're used to playing way better in the first two films. Going back to Last Night in Soho, I think Anya Taylor-Joy and Matt Smith just knock it out of the park, especially Matt Smith. I don't know how many roles I've seen Matt Smith play like that dark kind of role. I personally really enjoyed it. I think the performances overall are honestly stronger in Last Night in Soho than World's End. And speaking about World's End, honestly, like I said before, it's just the same bag of tricks. It's the same kind of jokes. It's the same kind of one-liners, just tweaked a little bit. The circumstances are just like tweaked a little bit. The situational humor, the cinematography, like everything, it's just too similar. I think people wanted something new from Edgar Wright, and I think that's why they didn't like World's End. And I don't think it is his most underrated film. I think it's a bad film. It is the Godfather 3 of his Cornetto trilogy. And yes, there is Last Night in Soho did come out pretty recently, but I think it's still underrated because there's so many good qualities.
Time. All right. So with that said, that was the two primary arguments for Last Night in Soho and The World's End. We're going to jump into the 4-minute open debate right now. Before that, I want to test what the camera looks like, see what it looks like, just for.
You could pop it on every once in a while too if it's too takes up.
I just want to see just the different styles.
However you want to do it, fine.
If I could have both of you on there with that would have been fire. Because then it's like, oh, cool. It's on there, but you guys are the primary thing.
I like the side one.
I do.
the
It just
most. Yeah, that one.
no. I mean, I like it. It's clean. It's just you guys are so tiny. So I was just trying to
Or
see if
even
there
if you just put the time in the chat every once in a while, that would be fine too.
Oh, that
I'll
would
pop
work.
it on too. I mean, if you guys just have the chat open, then yeah, I'm cool with that too.
I have the
Then
chat
I
open.
do.
Whatever
Okay,
chat prefers.
then yeah,
as well.
I'll do that. And then I'll pop it on for the last 30 seconds just because for the audience. So cool. All right. All right, gentlemen. So with that said, we are going to jump into your 4-minute open debate when the first person begins speaking.
The World's End is too many characters, which I don't care about. I don't care about a lot of the characters in that film. I just find them very boring and niche, and just like stereotypical archetypes of characters I've seen in other films. Also, just about that film, I find the CGI in that film to be horrendous. I don't believe the aliens or the light that's coming out. There's a couple scenes in particular where it's just not believable for me. Whereas
I know it feels like a little. I know it feels like
Whereas
a
last
little
night in
kind
Solo, the filming techniques they used for Anya Taylor-Joy and the other actress, I have trouble pronouncing her first name, but Mackenzie, just what they did to film them side by side, so they used practical techniques and in camera work. I just find it looked so much better than at World's End.
Well, I mean, I do agree that Last Night in Soho is a good film. I actually enjoy Last Night in Soho personally. I don't think it works for everyone, and that's why I think it's not, because I know you're like trying to say
that's why I think it's underrated, because it doesn't work for everyone.
Well, it doesn't work for everyone, kind of by design. I mean, a lot of those like giallo style films, it's very, like I was saying, niche. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. You're gonna get a lot, like Malignant. You're gonna get a lot of people who are like, this is amazing, and you're gonna get some people who go, I didn't understand that. I didn't like.
I think that kind of proves my point for an underrated film, because I think *Malignant* is also an underrated film where half people don't really like it. Whereas I think *At World's End* is kind of universally hated on because it's compared to the first two films in that trilogy. Like the first two films are so good.
Yeah, the first two films are so good, and like you said, *The World's End* follows that. It's like a big brother like them. It's a successor to them. It's like the one that follows in their footsteps, but also succeeds. It does a lot of the things better, that like the action, like the deep emotions that you get. You mentioned like Simon Pegg, Nick Frost not being that great in the movie because you didn't like the roles reversed. Honestly, I love that because I think that really shows their range as actors. And I'm serious when I say that it's Simon Pegg's best performance that I've ever seen. Same with Nick Frost. I mean, he hasn't been in much, but and I understand like you're talking about like the CGI-ness of the action. It does kind of have a Doctor Who feel to it.
It pulls me out of the film completely.
I think that's the charm of the film, to be honest. Like it's a very kind of like Doctor Who vibe, and Edgar Wright being British. That's him bringing a lot of himself and his enjoyment, things that he loves into it. When you talk about Last Night in Soho being different, and that's a strength of it, like, maybe, but I also think that's why a lot of people don't like it. They're like scratching their heads about why Edgar Wright would do this. Baby Driver was different. Scott Pilgrim was different from Cornetto stuff.
I think both those films
universally loved.
I don't think Scott Pilgrim is universally loved, but I think both those films and Baby Driver, I think they are different, but the comedic style is very similar to Edgar Wright's past films. There's a similarity, there's a through line between all those films, where in Last Night in Soho, it's completely different. So Edgar Wright fanboys are just like, I don't like this. Maybe I don't even want to watch this. Just looking at the trailers, it's too different.
Everyone.
And the problem with At World's End is that it was... fanboys thought it would be so similar because it was the end of the Cornetto trilogy, but when they saw it, it's just a downbeat on every level compared to the first two films. Like I don't think At World's End holds up.
Just having the emotional depth that it has to complement the comedy that it has doesn't mean that it's like a down note sad film. I mean, yours is about sexual abuse, and you can't even get the name right of my film. That shows you just how much disrespect this movie gets.
All right. That was the 4-minute open debate. Now we're going to jump into the 1-minute closing, starting off with Chad, when you begin.
Yeah, The World's End is just a really, really, really fun movie that people can enjoy on multiple levels. They can enjoy the fun party aspect to it, especially like after COVID, when you want to watch a fun movie where people are going out and drinking, having a good time, and then they got to battle some aliens. That's incredibly insane and intense and really fun. I think the action works super well. I don't understand. It wasn't Sean's bag, I guess, of the CGI, but I think the CGI holds up super well. I love the fact that, in this, you get the emotional depth of Simon Pegg saying, they told me when to go to bed. And you really feel that. There's not a lot in Last Night in Soho that you can really grasp onto. The characters don't really have that much depth, and you're just really watching the sad, tragic downfall of this girl. And you're just like, why do I want to watch the sad? Like, you're not going to want to watch that movie a lot of the times. Whereas The World's End is just so fun, but people don't act like it is.
All right, you guys like that smooth switch? I was able to switch it over with the time and pretty clean.
Professional.
All right, 1 minute to end this question when Shaun begins speaking.
Last Night in Soho is Edgar Wright's most underrated film because people don't want to give it the chance. A lot of people don't even want to see it. A lot of people who have seen it do appreciate it, but most of the audiences have just not seen it because of the darker tone, just the change in style, but it does have great performances from all of its leads. The cinematography is gorgeous. It deals with deep issues that Edgar Wright has not dealt with in other films, issues that don't always get brought up in films, in Hollywood production films. It has a female protagonist that really puts a spotlight on these issues. It was a breath of fresh air in Edgar Wright's catalog. I love seeing the era that it was setting, especially with the flashbacks. Like, it's such a cool vibe. My opponent said this like the CGI just doesn't hold up in The World's End. He said it looks like Doctor Who. That's not a compliment. Doctor Who CGI is awful. Doctor Who is made for television. The World's End is a film. I felt like the characters in that film didn't have depth.
Alrighty, so with that said, we are going to jump into the judging portion. So let's see what happens. All right, so same as always, 30 seconds roughly. Give us your primary reason of why you're picking who you're picking, and let us know who gets your vote. Starting off with Alejandro.
Man, I thought Shaun absolutely dominated that round. He was able to build up Last Night in Soho quite a bit and tear down The World's End like nothing else. So I'm going with Shaun for that one.
All right, one vote for Shaun. We're going to bounce over to McLovin, a.k.a. Noah McCausland. Noah, in 30 seconds or less. Who's got your vote?
Chad brought up a lot of good points about his movie, but I feel like Shaun really took this round. Just saying that World's End pretty much used the same tricks as the other two movies. That was a really strong point that he kept going on, and it doesn't really do anything kind of new or interesting. While Last Night in Soho is a completely different tone, a completely different movie than Edgar Wright's used to doing, and the practical techniques and the camera shots that are used are incredible and innovative, and just the cast is incredible, and the chemistry between Anya Taylor-Joy and Matt Smith was amazing. So I'm going to give it to Shaun on that one.
Absolutely. So apparently Last Night in Soho is more underrated than At World's End. All right. Congratulations on that point. All right. So fun fact. Pirates of the Caribbean is not a good Edgar Wright movie. So now we're going to jump into the third question.
In the heat of the moment, you just say things sometimes. You add a word.
I tried to hook you guys up by having the actual things in the bottom too. You had cliff notes. You're like, nah. Low key, I thought that was an argument. You're like, your movie is so bad, I can't even get the title right. Like I was hoping it was a bit, and then it ended up not being, but it all paid off. So with that said, we're gonna jump into your third question. One of those movies was of the science fiction genre. Now we're going to jump into the science fiction genre as a whole. What is the best sci-fi sequel of all time. No pressure here, guys, but you guys are putting that in the ether of what you guys are deciding is the best sci-fi sequel of all time. So we're going to start off with Shaun on this one, and then we will, see what happens. So with that said, here we go. Fun fact, just a little behind the scenes thing. On the bottom, it's in the wrong order, so it's the 2 minute, 4 minute, 1 minute, but I keep forgetting in the heat of the moment because the little dots cover up the actual numbers there, so I can't see which one's which. So if I ever screw that up, just roll with the punches. So with that said.
Cool, thank you. The best sci-fi sequel ever made. I picked the obvious choice. And because I picked the obvious choice, this might be an uphill battle for me. But I gotta go with my heart. I obviously picked Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, as the greatest sci-fi sequel ever put on film. The tonal changes from the first film, where it takes the characters, the depth. It's a completely different film that elevates everything from the first film. The acting, the characters, the special effects, the different planets, the scenery, the settings, the story. There's just so much to love to this film. I think it's a perfect film. I think Empire Strikes Back is a perfect film, and that's one of the reasons why it's the best sci-fi film. It's, for me, for a lot of people, it is the best Star Wars film. I think for the majority of the population, and there's a reason for that. So obviously that's why I picked it as the best sci-fi sequel ever made.
And time. All right. One would say that Chad's going to be the sequel in this argument because he's going second. 1 minute when you begin.
Science fiction covers many different topics as we face ever-advancing technology that can help us but can also take over our lives. As we see computers get smarter and smarter, we theorize what it would be like if computers can become intelligent enough to become sentient beings. We ask ourselves, do androids dream of electric sheep? The 1982 film Blade Runner explored a lot of these themes, but then in 2017, we got the long-awaited sequel we never knew we needed from the master filmmaker Denis Villeneuve called Blade Runner 2049, a sequel that stands on its own and expands on the universe and themes of the original. That's what a great sequel should do. In fact, it's so good, many people prefer this one to the original. We get phenomenal cinematography by the great Roger Deakins, phenomenal score by the greats Benjamin Wallfisch and Hans Zimmer. The writing is excellent, and it delivers a masterful performance from Ryan Gosling and others. It has a fantastic story that explores what it means to be human, the nature of memory, consciousness, and artificial intelligence. Blade Runner 2049 is the greatest sci-fi sequel ever made.
All right. Strike ever made from the record, as Jay would say. You actually just got greatest sci-fi, so that might actually help you. All right, so 2 minutes when Shaun begins speaking.
These are both good films. Blade Runner 2049, it was a surprise sci-fi sequel that was good, but it is not a great film. Denis Villeneuve is a great director. Obviously, there's many things I personally like about Blade Runner 2, but objectively, Empire Strikes Back is the better film. Especially, let's just compare the characters. The elevation between the first film to the second film, for Darth Vader, you find out who his son is, the journey of Luke Skywalker trying to be a Jedi, the budding relationship and chemistry between Han Solo and Princess Leia is just... every character hits harder. Everything is elevated in the first film. Looking at the sequel for Blade Runner, there's only really... there's one main character that comes back. How much is he even in the film? We see a little bit of growth from Deckard. We don't see a whole lot. We do see Ryan Gosling's character Kay throughout the film. He does a great performance, but we can't really compare it to anything else just looking at the characters between the films. Obviously, it's a visually it's a beautiful film. The Empire Strikes Back, look at when it came out in 1980. The visuals, when you saw that Hoth battle for the first time, those snow speeders attacking an AT-AT, like these kind of special effects weren't seen before. Blade Runner 2049, it's a beautiful film, but we've kind of seen all this stuff before. We've seen Harrison Ford do his thing at this point. We've seen Ryan Gosling do his performance from Drive before. Now he's just in this film. A lot of the other characters aren't really memorable at all. Jared Leto is just a fucking weirdo in the film. Every actor, every supporting character in The Empire Strikes Back, all those little Empire, what's it called? Lieutenants and admirals, like everyone who
time to talk. Admirals and lieutenants and all that stricken from the record. All right, 2 minutes when Chad begins speaking.
A science fiction film is a fictitious story with themes of scientific inquiry. Blade Runner 2049 has this in spades. Not only do we get amazing realistic visuals and sounds of a futuristic world, but we get heavy questions based on this world and advanced technology. We follow the story of Kay, who questions his own being, his own memory, his own personhood. He's vilified and bullied because he's seen as an other. He has a new model replicant charged with retiring older models. We get hologram products so realistic with joy that Kay is in love with her and trusts advice she gives that leads him astray. He even questions if she is real and genuine, just like people do with him. People in the film speak of a large blackout that destroyed so much data that people's lives were ruined. We also see replicant reproduction and freedom fighting. A lot of these situations in this movie are where we could see ourselves heading. It's almost like a very realistic cautionary tale for us viewers in this world with ever-advancing technology. The Empire Strikes Back is a beloved film. I get it. People love Star Wars. I love Star Wars. It's a great time. However, it is a bad choice for this question for two big reasons. You ask most Star Wars fans around, they're going to tell you that Star Wars is not science fiction. It is a space opera fantasy. Empire can be set anywhere that isn't space, and it's the same story. It's the hero's journey. Change lightsabers to swords, do a pirate movie, and it's the same thing essentially. Empire's story and themes mostly revolve around family drama, religion, and magic. The world of Star Wars does not exist in our reality because it has space sounds and magical force usage. Even George Lucas said Star Wars is not science fiction, but divorced from our reality so he could do whatever he wanted with Star Wars mythology. Empire is also not really a true sequel. As Randy Meeks would say, it's an entry in a planned trilogy. Empire does not stand on its own. It needs the first Star Wars for setup, and it needs Return of the Jedi for payoff. That's why I love Blade Runner 2049 as the best sequel, because it stands on its own and takes the best of what we love of the original Blade Runner, like the visuals, score, and some of the characters like Deckard, but also adds such a profound story with new characters and expands on the world building. Seed.
Now that's how you make up for that flow over from your 1 minute. So with that said, we're going to bounce over to the 4 minute opening or open round. Got a question, or are you starting?
No, I was going to start, but
all right. And when you can begin.
I think a classic defense for when you don't have anything that bad to say about a film is trying to say it doesn't fit in this category. Star Wars Empire Strikes Back is absolutely a sci-fi film. I was allowed to argue it for this category, so that your complaint that it has to deal with magic, you can change the lightsabers to swords, all that, it doesn't matter. It's not in a fantasy film for this category. It is a true sci-fi film. I honestly think Empire Strikes Back, you don't need to watch the first film. When I was a kid, I watched The Empire Strikes Back first. I didn't know the order of the films. I went to Blockbuster. I got the VHS of Empire Strikes Back. It had the Yoda head on it, and I understood everything. I don't think you need to watch A New Hope to understand Empire Strikes Back. It's a better film because the director is better. George Lucas is not directing this film. Irving Kershner is directing this film.
Oh, gotcha.
And that's why it's so good. That's why it's so much more mature. It's a darker theme. I don't think Blade Runner 2049 does stand on its own 2 feet. You do need to watch the sequel. You do need to know who Deckard is. You do need to know who Rachel is. You do need to know
all that.
What happened to the replicants, why they don't want them in this culture, in this society. Harrison Ford just pops in halfway through the film. You need to watch the first film to understand it, whereas Empire Strikes Back, off the bat, you have the opening crawl, which explains everything. You're already caught up. You don't need to watch the first one. The first film is pretty much in the opening crawl. You have amazing fight sequences, and especially the needle drop of Darth Vader telling Luke that he's his father. Like, that's cinematic masterpiece. You can't just say it's just a family drama. It's so much more than that. And looking at the year it came out in, there wasn't a sci-fi film done like this before. It had everything. It's a perfect film. Whereas Blade Runner 2049 Yeah, it's a good sequel. It is, but it doesn't hold up. And there's many other sci-fi films that I've seen that are better, like Aliens 2, Terminator 2, Back to the Future 2, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So much better films.
You named a lot of great sci-fi movies, sci-fi sequels that are way more sci-fi than yours is, because yours is just set in space. That's basically all that's there for it. You talk about me trying to go with semantics. I'm building an argument here to say that your film is a bad choice for this question because it's not a good sequel, and it's a good movie, but it doesn't work as like a true sequel. Like you said, you can watch it on its own if you want, but it's not going to get that full arc of Luke's arc throughout the entire thing. It's a planned trilogy. That's exactly why mine. It's such an ambitious film for Denis to come out 35 years later and then say, that classic film that you've grown to love, Blade Runner 2049, here's a sequel to it. You didn't know you needed it, but you do. You love it. It's the best. It's like it's something that people love more than the original. They explain everything from the original. You just get better visuals, you get better everything. But then here's some things that I have problems with as far as Empire goes, because with Empire, you do have the iconic nature of it and everything. But honestly, I feel like the acting is way better in 2049. You really feel like Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher are still trying to learn the ropes of how everything works. I think Harrison Ford is pretty great, but other than that, everybody else is pretty not that great.
James Earl Jones is fantastic in Empire Strikes Back.
He's good, but you just have
Yoda. Frank Oz was all they wanted him to be nominated for an Oscar for his performance.
Campy. But here's the thing, too. It devolves into such like soap opera territory with just the I'm your father. No, and it's just like really, it just gets kind of corny after a while.
All right, so now we're gonna jump into the 1 minute closing, starting off with Shaun. So 1 minute when you begin.
2049 is not a groundbreaking film, especially when you look at the computer graphics, the CGI that's done in the film, the I don't know if they use models, but it's not. Empire Strikes Back is groundbreaking. Everything they did in that film, they invented technology to do certain things in that film. That's why it's groundbreaking. You talked about the acting. That's one of Harrison Ford's most known performances, most liked performances. There was a huge push for Frank Oz, who voiced Yoda, to be nominated for an Oscar. And the Oscars were like, no, fuck you. You're not getting nominated for doing voice work. Frank Oz does better acting than anyone in 2049. Look at Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher's acting, her chemistry with Harrison Ford is just out of this roof. And you look at Mark Hamill, who is a great actor. You see his progression throughout the film. James Earl Jones. You see just how we went from the highs of A New Hope to the lows. This is the Dark Knight of films. Empire Strikes Back is a journey.
All right, we're going to go over to Chad for his 1 minute when he begins speaking to end this question.
Here's the RT critical consensus for 2049. Visually stunning and narratively satisfying, 2049 deepens and expands its predecessor story while standing as an impressive filmmaking achievement in its own right. And I think that's exactly what people keep saying with 2049 when they see this movie. They're like, okay, this is actually like a masterpiece that came out under the radar. Not a lot of people saw it first, but they're growing and building this film up. It's one of the best. I think when someone chooses Empire, exactly like he said, he's like, I'm going to rest on the fact that this is iconic. This is, considered to be one of the greatest. But honestly, it doesn't really work for this question. It is not a true sequel. It is not science fiction. Like I said and everything else, you can take this and do it in a different way. And it's, the core themes of it, exactly, are magic, there's sound in space. That doesn't make any sense because it's not scientific. Mine deals with all the deep sci-fi relations with androids.
All right, so that is the end of this question. So now we're going to bring out the judges, and we are going to decide who is winning this round. So once again, as always, 30 seconds or less. Give us your primary reason of why you're voting for who you're voting for and reveal your answer. Noah.
I hate seeing people argue Blade Runner 2049 because I love that movie and I've not yet been able to argue it. It is not because I love the movie that I'm going for Chad, but his arguments and a contradiction from Shaun. Shaun is saying that it goes to a whole new level with elements from the first movie, including characters. It takes the characters to a new level. But then he goes back and contradicts himself and saying, oh, this movie stands on its own. You don't have to watch the first movie to be able to understand this movie to get the full arc and the full range of things. But then he's trying to say it takes the characters and all these new elements to a whole new level from A New Hope. So he's saying you need A New Hope, but you don't need A New Hope. And that was just, it was confusing. It didn't work for Shaun's argument. And Chad, even though Shaun was trying to say, was trying to argue semantics, he won me over in saying that it doesn't work as a movie in this genre, even though he was allowed to argue it because George Lucas himself said it wasn't a sci-fi. So I'm going with Chad on this one.
All right, one vote for Chad. Tato, 30 seconds less. Give us your reason and who you're picking.
I have Shaun. He was able to counter most of Chad's arguments on the acting, the hero's journey, the whether or not the question was allowed, period thing. So, Shaun.
All right. And the tiebreaker is going to go to Alejandro, 30 seconds or less.
I had a feeling that this was going to be the one that we needed the tiebreaker on. This is why we have 3 judges, because, man, that was close. They're very similar types of movies, as were argued. You know, they both said you don't really need the predecessor to enjoy each individual movie. They both are great sci-fi movies in their own right. The thing that sold me was that Star Wars was more of a swashbuckling kind of classic style adventure, and 2049 is more of a cult classic that not a whole lot of people appreciate. So for that reason, I'm going with Chad.
All right. Chad is going to win this point. Honestly, did not know where that was going to go. So we are up 2-1 for Chad going into the 4th question.
And my heart's beating so fast.
It's always an uphill battle when you pick such an iconic film. I have noticed throughout the league, like it is what it is.
Literally, in my first championship, against Joe to win the title, it should have theoretically been a knockout, but I had Empire, and apparently I rested on my laurels, and he got me with Return of the Jedi. So I agree.
Yeah,
because one of those where you're like, I feel like you have to oversell it, even though you're just properly selling it. It's tough. But with that said, we're going to jump into the 4th question, which is a viewer-submitted question. I'm not reading that because I don't know where it's at. So with that said, go to the emails.
Official Aaron Canole at gmail.com. If you don't put your name and the question, make sure you put your name.
Make sure you put your name. Make sure you put something in the subject bar so he's not thinking you're spam. So with that said... gross. All right, so with that said, Will Cohen is the one who submitted this question, and your question is, what is Steven Spielberg's worst film? Our 2 favorite things, an eclectic director and worst. So now we're going to decide how trash Steven Spielberg is, starting off with gotta love that. Starting off with Chad. 1 minute when you begin speaking.
Steven Spielberg is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. Obviously, he gave us so many classics, but he is not without his faults. Sometimes he makes very poor decisions. With this question, we were asked what is the worst, and the worst can be interpreted in many ways, but I think the worst is when you take a classic franchise, try to bring it back with the 4th installment, and totally miss the mark. I'm obviously talking about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Fans were thrilled to see Indy return to the big screen after a 19-year hiatus. Instead of the great 4th installment, A New Chapter to Love, we got what looks on the outside like an Indiana Jones film, but what on the inside is actually a hollowed-out shell. It's an Oreo cookie with no filling. It feels like too many cooks in the kitchen trying to make the next great indie film, but they couldn't capture the magic of the original trilogy. Indiana Jones and all lovers of film deserve better. I mean, Steven Spielberg isn't even directing the new Indiana Jones. It's James Mangold, because they can't trust Steven with this anymore. It's the worst film Steven ever made.
And time. All right. So now we're going to bounce over to Shaun for his reveal. 1 minute when you begin.
The film that I've picked as Steven Spielberg's worst film is BFG. It's an awful film. Mark Rylance just has an awful, weird performance that he occasionally does in it. I don't think there's any real connection between some of the main characters. It just seems like a very hollow film. And again, going back to just Steven Spielberg has done so many films that have computer graphics, CGI in it. Just the actual creature in BFG just doesn't work. The giant, it just looks awful. It doesn't look realistic. It pulls me out of the film. I just hate this film, and a lot of people hate this film. It's universally hated. It did not do well when it came out. It did not do well critically. No one has ever gone back to rewatch it because it's awful. Steven Spielberg's worst film is the BFG.
All right. And 5, 4. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so now we're going to jump over to our 2 minutes. We have the BFG.
This isn't trivia.
I'm sorry. Where am I? All right. So 2 minutes starting off with Shaun when you begin speaking.
Wait, with me.
Chad.
Yeah, with Chad.
It's because you're on top and my mind just it's like if you drink a Dr. Pepper in a Pepsi bottle, you're like, what's going on? All right, Chad, 2 minutes when you begin.
Steven Spielberg created Indiana Jones. In 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark was nominated for Best Picture, and Indy became an icon. This is where the franchise started, and it maintained nearly similar quality throughout its initial trilogy. Now this fourth movie exists that pretty much nobody really likes, and it feels unnecessary. People wish it didn't exist. The main thing is Indy was always a real, flawed human being character. He would make mistakes and would always get out of situations by the skin of his teeth, making the audience feel a sense of danger and thrills. Indie movies used to be really exciting, actually. Indy's clothes would get dirty and torn, showing that he's been through some shit. A lot of this was missing from Crystal Skull. The character's clothes always felt freshly laundered and clean. Everything felt CGI or choreographed or too bright, and it just felt like they were going from set to set instead of the movie actually feeling real. They front-loaded a lot of the surprises too, like the reveal of the villains and Indy's friend being a double agent, instead of pacing it throughout the film, leaving the rest of the film feeling kind of dull. The actors felt like they were sleepwalking in it. It's just a mess of a film. The BFG is a really good movie. I think the main thing to remember is this is a film Steven made for kids. Adults can enjoy it too, because I certainly did, but it excels at being for kids. You have really strong performances in this. I think anytime you get Jermaine Clement voice work as the villain, you're going to get something amazing because he is such a distinct voice and he's amazing. Ruby Barnhill as Little Sophie is so sweet, but she's also strong and demanding. She's a super strong protagonist, helping the BFG learn how to stand up for himself and also finding a family of her own. Mark Rylance just has a naturally sweet, calming voice that he's perfect as the BFG. The film has good pacing, a good story, lessons that are really good for kids to learn, and it feels like a storybook story, which is perfect for Roald Dahl adaptation. The animation, too, is excellent with the character design. I think in the kind of lull period post-Crystal Skull in Spielberg's career, the BFG actually stands out as a really sweet film that Steven got exactly right.
And time. All right, now we're going to bounce over to Shaun for his 2 minutes.
I think Ruby Barnhill, who plays Sophie in BFG, I just feel like her acting was not up to snuff. I know it's kind of bad to shit on child actors. I just feel like she's never acted. I just feel like she's never acted when things aren't really in front of her, when there's not people there, which I felt kind of affected her performance. BFG, honestly, it's a bad adaptation of the classic Roald Dahl story. I didn't like it, and it just felt like other films, where you have to get a kid to be a hero to help to help. It just felt like Labyrinth and stuff like that. Like the whole story of it just felt very similar. Whereas Crystal Skull, I think, a lot of people don't like Crystal Skull, but you can't say that no one likes Crystal Skull. I think the audience is divided on Crystal Skull because there's a lot of really good things in Crystal Skull. I think Harrison Ford comes back and just knocks it out of the park. He's exactly Indiana Jones. He hasn't changed. That is Indy for me, and he didn't sleep through his performance. Cate Blanchett and Karen Allen also just come back, or Karen Allen comes back, and again, she just seems like Marion. It's like she's never missed a beat. I know she took a break from acting, but I thought her performance in the film was really good. Cate Blanchett as a villain. Cate Blanchett's just chewing up scenery. I fucking love it. And like you said, the cast was not that good. The acting in the film was not that good. I think Shia LaBeouf crushes it in the film. I love seeing him as Mutt. He plays so well with Harrison Ford. He looks like he's really pissing off Harrison, which probably behind the scenes he probably was, and it really shows on stage. I think there are stakes. I think you do see Indiana Jones get messed up. You do see his clothes get tethered. There are some stakes for it, and the other supporting casts like John Hurt and Ray Winstone also do really well. The CGI it is good and believable, and it's different from the other films, which is what I wanted in that series.
Alrighty, so that is your 2-minute rebuttals for each of you. Now we're going to go to the 4-minute open debate when the first person begins speaking.
Crystal Skull, it's not a bad film, and some say a lot of people actually like it more than Temple of Doom, especially since it is more kid friendly. Which you said my film was made for kids. I think Crystal Skull was kind of made for kids. It was made for this generation. It's rated PG-13. It doesn't have anything as gruesome as the original Indiana Jones films. It's more for kids. You get to feel that. That's why Indiana Jones has a son in the film. I love the locations. I love the practical settings. I love the motorcycle chase scene. It's great. I like the fridge. Sorry, I like the fridge. It's funny. I love the gophers. I love all of that. The opening of the scene when you see Indiana Jones' silhouette with the hat. It's a nice summer blockbuster. Where BFG is just a bad film.
I'm glad that you can enjoy a lot of the things that really, not everyone. I agree with you. Not everyone thinks either of these films. These films are very equally rated. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, they're very equal on there. So that's why we just have to talk about the movies themselves and why this isn't an underrated, overrated type of thing. People just really hate Indiana Jones, and I think if you have, especially your core fans, just really hating it, but then also new people not being able to get into it, I feel like that's why they removed Steven Spielberg. He can come in and do producing and stuff like that, but don't let him think. And this is also another thing of George Lucas coming in, trying to put his future stamp on it. It's no, you create things, George. Get out of there. Don't let him be a part of anything past maybe the first one. Even then, apparently his wife did a lot of the editing for the original Star Wars. So I don't even think he's a good creator at all, really.
I think, first of all, this is Steven Spielberg's franchise, okay? No one removes Steven Spielberg. He, for some reason, didn't want to come back and direct the film.
Because he doesn't know how to capture that character
Which is
anymore.
fine. He doesn't always like coming back to direct sequels. He's only directed Indiana Jones sequels and Jurassic Park sequels. He's known to not want to come back and direct sequels, which is fine. I think the older generation that loved the original trilogy of Indiana Jones films didn't like this new one because it's so different. But again, it's like the prequels. It's like the Star Wars prequels.
People don't like
the
it
generation
either,
that's coming up do like Crystal Skull. They do like Crystal Skull, and I've
never heard anyone say that other than you say, and that's just my people around me. Fair. Maybe there's a whole other swath of people out there that are Crystal Skull stans. I've never met one. But when you look at
I see a lot of debate that Crystal Skull is better than Temple of Doom. I don't hear any talk of BFG.
I know
it's a universally bad film.
With Temple of Doom, but Temple of Doom still has a lot of the core, dangerous stuff, a lot of the exciting sequences. There's really, you talked about the one sequence, the motorcycle. That's a decent sequence in the thing. Other than that, everything else is just boring. It's just so dull. The alien stuff is just what? It just doesn't make any sense about the thoughts, or I don't even know what the hell's going on in this movie.
But again, the alien stuff, the motorcycle sequence.
But Shia LaBeouf has criticized the movie. He doesn't think he was good in it. He doesn't think the movie was good, even himself. And
the motorcycle stuff, the alien stuff, the fridge, it's all more captivating than what's in BFG.
Especially with Transformers and with this, he just wasn't a good actor then. He's been better recently. With the BFG, this is what Steven excels at, is being, working with kids like E.T. and just having them just a really sweet movie for children. And I think this is one that
it's not a sweet film. It's a very weird, upsetting film.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
And time. I was muted for the first time. My dogs were getting rustled and bustled. So with that said, we're going to go into the 1 minute closing, starting with Chad.
I'm glad for this question, at least. Shaun seems to like Crystal Skull, but honestly, there's just so much in this. It's just so ridiculous that doesn't make any sense. And you maybe want to watch it on like a Mystery Science Theater level or whatever, but it's just had so many people coming together to try to make this that it feels so unfocused. Kate Blanchett is doing some weird impression of a Russian character, not like an actual performance for me. And Shia LaBeouf is not very good. They do this weird thing like, oh, well, they got to get that thing in there with Indy doesn't like snakes. So let's throw him a snake to pull him out. And it just looks so dumb. He tosses it behind his shoulder. You can tell it's fake. It just gets so like weird and campy, but not in a way that like is like really cool. Indiana Jones used to be fucking cool. And this is just so, it almost killed the franchise, and it probably did. The BFG is just a very cute story that doesn't really affect anyone, and people can actually enjoy, especially children.
All right, now we're going to go over to Shaun for his 1 minute when he begins speaking.
The BFG is a bad, cliched, rushed film with horrible pacing. It seems like Steven Spielberg just needed to make money that year. The CGI is awful. This film came out in 2016. The giant doesn't look believable. Mark Rylance has no chemistry with the female child lead. What is Steven Spielberg's worst film? Okay? Nothing good has been said about BFG other than it's a good adaptation. No scenes have been brought up. No story notes have been brought up about my film. The Crystal Skull, there's so many good things that were brought up about it. People like the aliens, the motorcycle chase scene. Shia LaBeouf is a choice, and for me it works. You have Indiana Jones in this film. Having Indiana Jones in this film just by default makes it better than BFG because it's such a likable character and Harrison Ford just steps back into the role. Just the setting, it's so much better. It's such a pleasant environment to be in, whereas BFG is just a slog.
Time. All righty, so with that said, we are going to go into the judging portion, and we're going to see what happens. I think that's the order.
I went first last time.
Well, I guess it's not the order then. How about those apples? All right. As always, 30 seconds or less. Give us an idea of why you're picking, who you're picking, and make that reveal on your vote. Alejandro.
Yeah, I thought Chad for this one, man. He was able to talk down Kingdom of the Crystal Skull quite a bit as a disappointment, not only as a movie, but it ruined a franchise that I think a lot of people wanted to see come back to life as just a confusing, boring movie. Shaun really didn't have anything to counter that for the BFG, so yeah, I went with Chad.
All right, and we're going to go over to Jake.
Also went with Chad here on the little circle thing. Yeah, he was able to just destroy Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and Shaun, great knock on BFG, but not the franchise ruiner that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was.
All right, so with that said, right, it's best of 5. Thumbs up in the background. I'm not, just because I'm new to it. It's best of 5, right? That's what it says in the thing. Thumbs up. Chad, Shaun, right? That's your, I can see you guys. So thumbs up. Okay. I just want 4 points. On here it says best of 5. Here, I'll just message Aaron. Hopefully I can get a response back. I don't want it to be conflicting, and I don't want it to be awkward, so. Yay. Awkwardness.
Oh.
Well, we're just gonna.
Yeah.
Literally, this is Like he doesn't just copy and paste stuff. He like does a write out for all the stuff. So it says best of 5, first of 3.
Is it the number 1 contenders one though?
Yeah, like I said, he individually
email.
right?
Yeah.
So he just said this matchup is a number 1 contenders match that will lead to a title match against Henry. Yeah, he said best of 5. He just messed it back.
So that means that it's over, or we're going on?
That's it. So yeah. So now I'm gonna do the cuts right. He's messaging me right now, so it's confirmed. So I'll do the cuts. So get your game face ready. I'll wait for you to have your game face ready, Chad. All right. And your winner, moving on to the championship to play this guy, Chad Webb, with a score of 3-1. Chad, first of all, how do you feel? Second of all, are you prepared for this? And third of all, how do you feel?
I mean, I feel great. Shaun definitely brought it. I felt very, maybe not as, I think Austin still is the match that I felt the most, my heart beating the most, because that dude is a freaking freight train. And, I will say that every time. But yeah, Shaun is a hell of a player. He brings the passion. He knows how to freaking get in there and like spin things that you say to make it look like you're dumb. And that's what he does the best. But, he also loves these movies. I love the passion that he brought for like Empire and stuff like that. Things went my way. Am I ready for this? I've played you before. You're no slouch. You're the champ. I got to go up against you. But I'm going to approach a match against you as I would approach a match against anyone else. It's one of those things. I'm going to say my shit. If it's something people like to hear, they'll vote for me. And if not, then they won't vote for me. I lost a point this one. It was one of the ones I really wanted because I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan. But, my heart didn't speak this time on that one. But I'm excited because I know you're very intense, but you're also really fun to chat with. You have a lot of great opinions too. So, and different opinions. I think you and I might butt heads quite a bit. So I'm kind of excited for that. But I had a really greght time. Shaun is a really cool guy. And I'm just really glad this match happened because, there's so many times where this wasn't going to happen. And, I'm glad that, Shaun and I were able to actually find a time to come together and actually have some really good conversations, even if they were opposing a lot of the time. So great job, Shaun. And thank you very much for a good fight.
There you go. And my 1-2 words to you is you're going to need some more than some notes and some paper and a script to play me. But with that said, we're going to bounce over.
I do my shit the way I do it. Hey, it works.
Well, hey, if you don't mind being knocked out, then hey, that's on you. I respect that. So we're gonna jump over to our second place finisher. Unfortunately, Shaun Hunter.
Can we just bring Chad back and you guys can just talk shit? That'd be more interesting than interviewing me right now.
Nah. So all right. So as someone who has lost a match before against Jay, against a guy who does a lot of yelling. This is one where you had the passion. I played you, so I know the passion. I still believe that I should have won that X-Men argument. I definitely believe I should have won that Paul Rudd one, but hey, neither here nor there. But with that said, are you down on yourself? Is it one of those matches where the judging, how the debate went, the judging could have gone either way? Or is it one of the ones where if you played the same exact match tomorrow, with a little bit of tweaking from your arguments or whatever, then it could have drastically changed?
I think the way the arguments were done today, what was said, I totally agree with the judges. Chad came very prepared. If I were to go up against him again, I would just have to be more prepared. I feel like if I was, I could have won. Obviously, I think every competitor feels that. But Chad just came with some very well thought out arguments and a lot of stuff written down, which is fine. That's his style. But I think his preparation really helped him. Obviously, it did because he beat me.
There you go. So obviously, let me check the behind the scenes. I'm not sure exactly what the the plan is ahead of time. If we get to that, post notes, Nats. If you lose, your record is now 4-3. You'll have a strong chance of having the option to be part of the end of the year tournament. Ask him his thoughts of playing another tournament, or who he'd like to play. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I Ron Burgundy? Yeah. So, how do you feel about the concept of being in the end of the year tournament if you accept that invitation?
Yeah, I love debating, especially film. If I was asked, I'd say yes. I'd be very excited. It depends on the timing. It does. It takes sometimes if you prepare a lot, it does take a big chunk out of your day, out of your week, that not everyone always has the time to do. But yeah, I would. End of the year tournament sounds dope.
There you go. Well, I hope to see that as just a co-producer of this league as well as a fan, and obviously as a champion. I'd love to see the better players in this. So win, lose, or a draw, I want to see a fight, and I want to be entertained, and I know you're going to bring that regardless. So I hope to see that. But obviously life happens, and we'll see what happens. So congratulations on a valiant effort, and we should be seeing you very soon.
Thank you, and I hope you and Chad have a banger of a championship match. I know you'll both bring it, and I'm very excited for that.
I'm excited for that too. Thank you very much. So with that said, my name is Henry Confidential. Shout out to Aaron Knoll for everything that he does behind the scenes. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today because he's become real busy, and that's why we appreciate him even more now than before, because he's still pumping out, we're not going to talk about that. So with that said, my name is Henry Confidential. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel here on TMG Trivia Entertainment. I don't remember which one this one's on, but because I'm subscribed to them both and it just kind of goes in my head. So with that said, shout out to Chad Webb. Congratulations for him. Shout out to Shaun Hunter for a valiant effort. Shout out to our judges, Jake Tato, Alejandro Hernandez, and Noah McCausland. And shout out to you for watching. So my name is Henry Confidential. This is the movie Battleground, and show up again because there will be more Battlegroundings. I don't have a closing for this. Bye, guys.